excited to bring you one more series on Talking Points with Capstone. I'm Dr. Sujaya Banerjee from Capstone People Consulting, and thank you everyone who's found time, on a afternoon to be able to, on a working day afternoon, to be able to join us in this important conversation. So I'll be really glad you're here. And what we're diving into today is a topic that sits right to the heart of so many careers and organizations. We've called it the surge effect, accelerating the careers of mid management women leaders. Now, we know that mid career is an important moment of tremendous potential, but also a moment where your momentum can stall. Whether you're currently inside an organization navigating the structural barriers, or you've taken a career break and you're looking to be able to find your way back, the road to senior leadership comes with unique pressures. And so, therefore, we're calling this the surge effect. So, I'm going to spend some time to be able to tell you a bit about why we call this conversation the surge effect. In fact, the intervention and the learning journey that Capstone carries out for various leading organizations is also called the surge effect. Gaurav, I'm going to ask you to be able to move to the visual that I want you to be able to look at. So, we want you to look at a career as a 400 meter run, which means it's 4 laps. And in the first lap, there is a lot of momentum, right? Like you start your career with great enthusiasm and the rest of that, whether it's for men or women. And eventually, typically, most runners who are in the game deliberately kind of slow down towards the end of lap one. So you start with a head start, and then you start slowing down a bit so that you can conserve energy as you're going through lap two. And then by the end of lap two, as you start coming into the game again, you kind of deliberately pace up, and you start increasing your speed so that you're able to kind of catch up, so that by the fourth lap you're able to do that lap with a lot of energy and enough sort of verve to be able to win. So fundamentally, we're referring to careers as similar to a 400-meter run. So many organizations have strong women leaders at mid to senior levels, yet somehow the pipeline to CXO and enterprise leader roles remain frustratingly thin. The reason may not be capability, it's often momentum. And so women leaders in the second and third laps of their careers face a different set of challenges than the early stage talent. So complex stakeholder navigation, invisible barriers to enterprise visibility, and the unspoken rules of executive sponsorship. Now, that's where this surge effect kind of really comes in. And when I'm talking about the deliberate slowdown in the first lap, it's primarily because of life transitions. It's because a lot of us choose to be able to get married, to be able to have our children, and it's not uncommon that once you've had the second child, you want to be able to come back with more momentum to be able to win. And we're actually alluding to, that momentum building, and what is the kind of support, help mid-career women require to build that momentum to be able to win. So, basically, to join me in this conversation today, I'm very excited to be able to invite um, Anuradha Das Mathur. So you can, you stop sharing, Gaurav, and thank you. Anuradha Das Mathur is the founder, CEO of Vedika for Women. She's also the founder and dean of Vedika Scholars Program for Women. She's also the co-founder and director, Samarth Life Management Private Limited. We're really excited to be able to have her. She actually works very solidly in this space, and she's been someone who's been like a not just a thought leader in the space, but literally somebody who very, very passionately has worked, done ground level, made ground level efforts to be able to really enable women to be able to succeed. She's very, very passionate about the team, very knowledgeable about it, and I think she's a great person to be able to have this conversation with today. So welcome, Anuradha. Very excited that we're finally doing this. So,
Thank you for having me.
all right, super. So, Anuradha, I'm going to start by being able to ask two sort of poll questions. We don't have a full poll facility, but I want to be able to put that up. So, Gaurav, help me with this. Move to the first poll question we want to ask the people who are on this call today, and you can take to the chat and respond. And we'll try and see how much of this we can integrate as we go along. We'll start with a few reflections. Which of these mid career barriers has been the hardest for you personally? Is it the lack of sponsorship, which is someone advocating me in the room, which is advocating you in the room? Is it invisible workload, office housework that doesn't really lead to a promotion? Is it the fact that rebuilding confidence and network after a career break becomes difficult, or being seen as too assertive or not likable enough? Are these these are the options, which ones tick for you? And there could be more than one. We can leave that on the screen for a bit so that you can choose which ones work for you. This is also on your chat on LinkedIn Live, so do pick what you think is your barrier if you are a mid-career woman leader. So which of these mid-career barriers, right? With that, move to the next one. I have a second question for you. And the second question is: have you ever felt that your career momentum stalled at mid management even when you were performing well? So, have you ever felt that your career momentum stalled at mid management even when you were performing well? So, the options here are yes, and I'm still feeling it. B is yes, but I found a way through. C is no, not yet. And D is I'm returning after a break. So, it's a different kind of stall. So, are you experiencing this stall? And you believe that you're experiencing the stall despite actually performing well. And by stall, it really means that your career seems to have kind of lost momentum. You don't know where it's headed, and it doesn't seem to be preparing you for anything big within the organization. And this could also apply to women who are returnee women who've come into the workforce, because it's not uncommon to have some degree of focus on wanting to bring back women, mid-career women, to the workforce. So I do believe a lot of organizations are trying to do this. Having said that, they do not have any form of structure to be able to actually build momentum in to build momentum to help you through lap 3, lap 4 of your career. So, the four is going to come if you've built momentum in lap 3. So, Anushri Deshpande is saying it's both A and C, which is yes, and I'm still feeling it. And, do you feel that this is stalled even when you're performing well? And you're saying it's no, not yet. Okay. So, you feel that you were performing well. It's A and okay. Neha's saying it's A and D, which is yes, I'm still feeling it, and I'm returning after a break, so it's different kind of stall. All right, great to have these reflections before we jump into the conversation here today. We do want you to keep a live chat, put your questions there. Feel free to add with comments, share your experiences so that we're able to sort of make this conversation more real, because I know it's palpably true for a very large number of women leaders, which is I've returned, I'm a returnee but don't yet feel momentum in my career. So, question: how can mid management women shift the dynamic from just being highly valued executioners to being recognized as strategic senior leaders? So, I'm just simply going to say, keep the questions going. We'll take these questions as we go along. I'm going to pick some of the threads so that Anuradha and I can get into a conversation. And Anuradha, I want to start by being able to talk about given the surge effect that we just spoke about right now, it's not uncommon to see women's career trajectories stall at mid levels with personal transitions and motherhood and the rest of it. And even if, they've put that, they've taken the break and they're now returning back and they see themselves better poised to be able to contribute, it somehow kind of looms large as, someone who's busy with raising children and is preoccupied and so on. So I want to talk about what can women do when this slowing down becomes inevitable. What do you believe women can do at this time? And I'll add, of course, to the conversation as we go along. So, when you do feel palpably this is slowing down, what can you do about it?
Yeah. So, first of all, thanks a ton, Sujaya, and very, very thoughtful start to this conversation. But I do want to take a second or a minute maybe to talk a little bit about how I see the analogy of the surge effect. And I want to go back a little bit in time in terms of the way we just see careers pan out. Everybody, there's this overhang of the biological clock and your career sort of being very coterminous is really at the core of all of this conversation, right? That your
Yeah.
life transitions are sort of looming large when you want to focus on your career. And there's a part of me that's been thinking about this for a while, and some of it is influenced by the fact that I actually work with younger women. So the way I see the future panning out is a little bit different. But life expectancy, Sujaya, has changed by 25 years. But the timelines that we put for ourselves, both to be married and to have children, hasn't shifted significantly. Although, if you just look at demographics, globally, fertility is dropping everywhere. People are either not marrying or marrying late, not having children or having children late. So I just want to park those aside as parallel sociological
Shift.
developments
Yeah.
that are, yeah, they're trends that are actually showing up. Now, if you unpeel that and say, why is that happening? I think part of it is what you're talking about. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that sometimes the reason why in a runner, it's a very deliberate effort to push and then deliberately slow down. I feel like for a lot of women, the first surge hasn't happened.
Hmm.
That before you can actually give momentum to your career,
Hmm.
the professional capital that you build up with a reputation for being a certain way, for the reputation of being someone who gets it done. I feel like the that period of 23, 24 to 30, when you could actually put that surge in, I think that is perhaps missing for a lot of people who are mid-career today.
Hmm.
So I feel like we have to become much more deliberate for your analogy to actually play out in life. That you
Yeah.
put the momentum in, you have the professional capital, you have the agency, so that then your slowdown can be a little bit more deliberate, and then
Hmm.
you can come back, right?
Hmm.
So I think
Hmm.
that's the larger trend we are dealing with.
Hmm.
Um, Second
And
question is,
I have to just interject here for a bit to say that that's so true. Because, even if I make this a little anecdotal and look at it in the context of when did I do the, the personal transitions, and I've done them way back, 7 years into my career. And, also, I got promoted while I was pregnant. And so I already knew I was moving up. And I got that promotion because I had already invested upfront, you know what I mean, already waited to be able to actually make that transition. And the transition was on the job, it wasn't a break. So I know different circumstances for different people, and many people on the call may have already made that transition early in the game. But I think this is more of a very meaningful message, Anuradha, for all the young people who are still not, who are still at early stages where they can kind of plan these things more meaningfully for themselves. And Linda Grattan's book, The 100-Year Life, recommend everyone to be able to get hold of that, so that you can start seeing, particularly the young people who are starting on their careers, you don't need to repeat the mistakes of the past. You know what I mean? Start looking at things more differently. And I think from Anuradha's point, the fact that life expectancy has changed, you don't need to rush into things. You don't have to do things in your 20s. You can wait a bit. We can see that trend already unfolding. But I'm just trying to say that you are going to live really long. So, you may as well want to pace things differently, to the point that Anuradha was making. But no, back to you. You were saying
yeah,
something.
but also I feel because life expectancy is longer, we have longer to make corrections for what we didn't do.
Hmm. That too.
if we are,
Yes.
if we are deliberate about it, if we are committed to it. And that brings me to two more points that I want to make, really, for the surge to be able to pan out in our lives and careers. That there is a foundational acceptance that we have sort of built into our psyche about the care economy and the care infrastructure. And I think any of us, mid-career women who are on this call, I think there's a long journey ahead. There is an opportunity to role model for people who are younger, and there is an opportunity to make changes for ourselves. Because if our careers have to pan out, we have to do the hard work of changing the ecosystems that we work in, till such time that we continue to believe that care responsibilities are only ours to shoulder. I think we will keep running in the same place, maybe with a little bit more ease, with a little bit more expectation, with a little bit more lip service, both from ourselves and our organizations. But I think fundamental change requires the care economy to get fixed, and we have to believe it, we have to ask for it, we have to demand it, and we have to make it happen for change to become sustainable going forward. Now, for every mid career person who wants to come back and give that momentum to their lives, I think there is that. work to be done to say how much of that responsibility needs to be shared if we have to have meaningful careers. And the last piece that I say for change to actually happen, and for those structural and mind and organizational shifts to happen, is to not make our careers optional. Till, there was I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. I was sitting in a presentation. I must have been pretty young, maybe like 25 years ago. Somebody said that, we are told, don't burn your bridges. And this guy had put a slide, and it said, when you have to give something your 100%, actually you have to burn the bridges, because otherwise you always give yourself the option to go back. Now, the analogy is not about destroying, that's not the point at all, but it is really about making some things for us as non negotiable as we make our families, our care responsibilities, and whatever. So I think that life where you say, what, my career is non negotiable to X point, my family, of course, is non negotiable to X, maybe plus 5%, but I think some of that work is really inner work for us to be able to say, I want to do this. And then, Sujaya, we move on to how do we make it work?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
every time you approach an issue as, can I do it or can I not? And I can give you an example from my own life. There was a big transition, and every day I would come to work, and there would be this little voice in my head saying, yeah, nahi ho payega. I don't think I can do this. And 3 months out, I changed the question. And I said, how can I make this work? Because I don't want to give this up. And when you say that for 2 parts or 3 parts or 4 parts of your life, and I perhaps say this with a little more ease and conviction than many other people who are listening, because I grew up with a mother, Sujaya, who went to work every single day, 3 kids. We lost my dad when she was quite young. But I think, looking at her, I grew up with the knowledge that you don't have to make that choice.
Hmm.
If you're committed to it, you can make it both work.
Hmm.
And we
Hmm.
can move to what do we need to do, and what do organizations need to do, and what does policy and government and systems need to do.
Right. So, I'm so glad that you started with the core of what do I want and how badly do I want this. And, if I don't make it non negotiable, I won't demand more for myself. And I think that is so, so important. That is right at the center of winning, which is how badly do you want this, right? And I think that, people sense it when you really want it. You also behave differently when you really want it. So,
Yeah.
for example, it's not uncommon. And I think Howard wrote this article many years ago called Women in the Labyrinth of Leadership, which really talked about how men are associated with agentic behaviors and women are associated with communal behaviors, which is that it's very obnoxious to have a female who's not very polite, who's not kind, who's not caring, and all of that. And at the same time, men get associated with decisiveness and solving problems and being out there and being directive and the rest of that. So, interestingly, all the words that you use for leadership are associated with agentic behaviors, and all the rest on kindness, care, and the rest of that is what is associated with women. And that how often women become not likable when they're very ambitious. And I think that that kind of holds them back. And I'm here to be able to say that we don't have to become we don't have to imitate men, we don't have to become obnoxious, we don't have to do anything when we're really deeply ambitious. In fact, deeply ambitious people don't burn bridges. Deeply ambitious people make connections. Deeply ambitious people become likable. Deeply ambitious people find the time to be able to invest in people. So basically, your EQ, which is by and large, a strength for a lot of women, with the communal behaviors that Harvard's really talking about, and I'm saying can actually be a big strength, so long as you don't allow that to lapse into becoming a people pleaser. That's when we start losing the plot. The idea is, how can you do this so that you have the opportunity to assert? And assert just simply means that you speak with conviction. Yeah, I think a lot of the challenges on this transition at mid level is because you don't find the required gravitas to do the job. And it's sometimes seen as very distracted with the care responsibilities that Anuradha is talking about. And as a result of this, would we be able to invest and count on this person? I've been part of so many talent boards where as part of the assessment process for a position that's opened up at a leadership position. There's a female. They're few and far between, but there's a female, and there are two men sometimes, or three men sometimes, and we're trying to evaluate to see who would be able to do it. Invariably, I found when you interview the female, right, who's as part of the panel, the men on the panel will turn to each other at the end of a very nice conversation to be able to tell each other once she's out of the room, कि ये कर पाएगी क्या? Would she be able to do it? And it's because, for instance, one of the positions we were looking at was for CFO for one of our group companies. And the lady who participated in the process, in the assessment center process, extremely talented, fabulous track record, had worked with the consulting firm before she'd come to us, great reputation on the ground and the rest of that, and then came in to be able to talk to us about what she'd done, and to basically be able to stand up to the questions that were being asked, to be able to assess whether she would indeed be able to handle this leadership position. And when she left the room and they turned to each other to say, ye kar payegi kya, what they actually meant was that the ecosystem is male. Yeah, the entire ecosystem of stakeholders, especially when it comes to even outside the organization, mainly outside the organization, as much inside the organization, is very hardcore male. And the idea being, would she be able to manage that ecosystem? And I think that that's what women need to increasingly understand, that because you're very good, you may get an opportunity to be part of some of these assessment processes. But the opportunity really is to not so much to ascertain whether you have the knowledge for the job, but to be able to ascertain whether you have the grit for the job.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the idea there is to be able to not slip up on that, which is to be able to be really strong, really brave, show the gravitas, show your social intelligence in the context of the ecosystem in which you exist, which means you can befriend, build rapport, you can build trust no matter who it is that you're dealing with. The complexity on the ecosystem has gone up dramatically. So you don't just have your regular 4 5 people to be able to deal with. It's a thing to be able to deal with multiple layers of the board. You are dealing with local tehsildar. You need to be able to deal with the police. You need to be able to deal with the local politician. Your complexity of who your stakeholders are as you're getting higher and higher up have gone off dramatically. And if at that time you come across as someone who's underconfident, or is a people pleaser, or is somebody who's lacking in the gravitas to be able to stand up to this, it's very, very much the reason why a lot of women don't get considered for senior leadership positions. So developing this, creating the readiness, is what our conversation today is really all about. We don't want you to make it to that assessment center and then not clear it, right? We want because it's your persona. I'm here to tell you, it's largely your persona. That what everyone else knows is a given. And currently, especially in the area of disruption, continuous change and complexity, it's going to be your ability, your emotional agility, your emotional awareness, your grit, your ability to be able to stand up to pressure, your ability to demonstrate gravitas in a tough situation, and your ability to want this so badly that you're not going to run away. You're not going to need help. You're not going to become helpless. You're going to be able to stand up there and do it like anyone else. So, my concern is not just Anuradha, and I know you're alluding to some very, very crucial parts, which is, how badly do you want it? Do you have to do what past generations have done? Do you want to start looking at your careers differently? But there's no replacement. I'm always telling people, there's always this conversation around opportunities and politics. I mean, it means that basically people get opportunities because they know people. They get opportunities because of familiarity and not competence. All these adages and all these concerns. The truth is, in the current environment of constant change and complexity, there is an automatic orientation towards merit. And I'm saying this because, yeah, it is not easy to be a leader, top leader in the current environment. It's just simply not easy. And I think it's a great opportunity for women to be able to come forth and show the grit. They must be given opportunities at mid level. And I'm here to be able to talk about our first question, which is, how do we basically, when the slowing down is becoming inevitable, what can you do to be able to show up as someone who can take on a top leadership position? So, Anuradha, I'll invite you in here, and then I'm going to share a story.
Okay. So, I mean, you said a whole bunch of things, Sujay, and I think the one part that I completely agree with is that I think leadership is at a very, very interesting inflection point.
Mm.
Okay, the things that, and by the way, it's not like I believe women are empathetic and men are not. I think they are
Mm.
both conditioned to be
Oh
who
yeah,
they are. Somebody
yeah.
asked me once, are women kinder than men? I think they're just kind in different ways. So I would
Mm.
hesitate to say men are unkind and women are kinder.
Yeah,
Not at
yeah,
all.
not true
We
at all.
show these
Sorry.
things in different ways. But conventional qualities or attributes that are associated with women are not those that have been associated with leadership over the years,
Mm.
and things that are for the home and domestic and caring are those that have been associated with women.
Mm.
Now, till such time that we are able to address the conditioning and
Yeah.
arrive at a much more thoughtful way of society where men and women both demonstrate the attributes in a much more equal manner, till then, Sujaya, we have to navigate the world, the professional world, as it is,
Mm.
and
Mm.
able to win in that. Right now, if we are saying that the leadership attributes that are the attributes that are associated with leadership are very male, we have to recognize that and figure out how we get past that. Now,
Mm.
like I said, fortunately for us, leadership language in the last decade has started to incorporate everything that women have been attributed with, so we have a natural entry point.
Mm.
Okay. The second thing that you alluded to was grit. Now, I feel like grit is a muscle. One
Mm.
day I feel gritty, and the next day, I've gone back and seen stuff happening at home, this, that, and the other, and then I ask myself, do I really want this enough? And I think that muscle building needs support. And
Mm.
that's why I have a very, very strong belief in that coterie that every woman needs to have in her life, of a
Mm.
bunch of people, men and women, who will give her the courage to demonstrate that grit every time it's needed.
Mm.
Because we tend to slip. I mean, I can give you a personal example. I've not been somebody who knew how to set boundaries. Right
Mm.
now, as I've grown older, I have a little bit more grit, and I've understood that saying no is not a bad thing.
Mm.
And but it takes me so much effort to say no. I'll say no, and the next day maybe I'll say it again. On day three, it's just easier for me based on the conditioning and the way I've lived my life to actually give in. On
Mm.
that, if I have a conversation with you or I see a social media post that tells me, listen, do what's right for your career or do what right's for you, that muscle building and that support structure, I think, is absolutely essential. And that
Mm.
takes me to the third point you made about networks, about knowing people, etc.
Yeah.
Now, we have been so grateful in our generation that we had the opportunity for a professional life that, riddled with guilt, you finish work and run back home.
Mm.
In a world where networks are important, I really want to urge women in their mid careers.
Yes.
You're spending so much time wanting to build a career, that little bit extra that it takes to build networks. And I'm not talking about networking, I'm not talking about that. But that effort, that your work is a little bit more than ticking a box, which is saying just get to work and come back. Because your competition otherwise is people who are willing to put in a lot more. So, till such time that we dismantle those structures, we have to find smart ways of having those networks, whether it is through, I don't know. I mean, my recipe for networks is just being helpful.
So, I want to make a quick point here because, I work with top leadership teams across organizations, both in India and abroad. And there's nothing to say that men are particularly better than women at networking. All right. There are a lot of them who struggle with it themselves. So, the thing with what's changing within organizations is that what is increasingly emerging is the need for an enterprise leader, not people who are functionally smart and who are seeking vertical careers. It is These are times where the real value of an individual is when you understand the entire value chain, which means that you understand how value gets created, and you understand how functions and teams work with each other to be able to create something uh, outstanding. And so, increasingly it's difficult even for men to be able to have localized networks and then imagine that they're going to succeed. So I'm going to invite all of you on the call to be able to build these relationships both inside and outside the organization. These are times where nothing, no talent can remain hidden if you can find differentiated solutions. And oftentimes, this is about integrating with people across the organization on ideas, on opportunities, and the rest of that. I think more than this business of I do my work and I run away home because I have other responsibilities, is how you're restricting your world in terms of being able to not build meaningful relationships inside and outside, which requires some degree of time. So how are you going to do that smartly? And I think that finding opportunities for integrated solutions by working together with different people within the organization and showing your prowess at how you solve problems is exceedingly important. So if we, the more we restrict our jobs and keep it limited, we don't have a chance to be able to stand out. The great things about these times of complexity and change is that are finding our talent constantly from different levels within the organization. So you don't have to wait to get to a senior position to be noticed if you're doing something really outstanding. So I think the first part is self advocacy, which is you ask for opportunities if they're not coming your way. And the second part is to use those opportunities well to really stand out. And I think both of these require you to be able to have high levels of great interpersonal capability across diversity. What I mean is befriending people who are not like you. I find a lot of women wanting to be in cliques and wanting to feel safe and wanting to be with people who are like themselves. I'm saying open this up and become friends with people who are not like you. Go talk to people who are not like you, which means people who you think are very senior, you think they're very knowledgeable, you think they're great experts. I mean, all of them should be part of your network, and you should know these people so that you're able
Yeah.
to know where are the great opportunities within the organization rather than living, keeping a kind of restrictive existence within the organization, which also restricts opportunities. I also
I
want to
just
talk about, yeah, sorry, no, please come in.
Sorry, no, I just wanted to add, just to the point you're making on relationships and networks, Sujaya, it's also, correlated knowledge and context for the work that you do.
Hmm.
I feel like that is so important in today's day and age where the world is dynamic and when you have, I mean, I can say that about young people, young women that I work with or mid-level women that I work with. It's not just siloed, you're great at what you do, but that's what you do.
Yes,
Someone who mediates and can connect the dots. I think that connecting the dots is such an important quality that we all admire in people, that we work with, that you
yes,
hear something, pick something, learn something, read something, and that you come with how that can expand or change or improve or better what you do. I think
right.
those qualities in people, which, for some people could come from networking, from some people it can come from reading, being aware, like there is no substitute for curiosity and learnability, in
Yes,
my
yes,
view.
yes.
And I
And
think
I think it's
it's
also
good.
very important. What I'm alluding to is that don't keep it to just socialization. A lot
Hmm.
of us believe that, networking and saying hi to people or knowing many people locally around us, it means that we're well connected or we collaborate. Not true at all. Collaboration is a spectrum. So, you could network, you could cooperate, you could coordinate, and then you collaborate. And when you collaborate, it means that you basically co-create value. You take risks together and co-create something for the organization. So I don't think there is any opportunity to keep your talent hidden if you amply demonstrate it. And so I'm going to invite you to be able to sort of draw these opportunities to yourself, watch out for them, ask for them. I think that is ever so important. Ask for them. One of the things that I goad people to do is to ask their manager, what does a 5 rating look like? What do you want me to do so that I can get the 5 rating? Right. And then catch him in the trap of what it is that he just asked you to do. Right. We should come back in your review to be able to ask, because a lot of the internal processes within organizations require you to be a consistent high performer. Don't just fret and be upset and call out foul play on bias when you don't get the rating. Instead, get the tail to wag the dog. Figure what it is that you need to do to be able to get
Very
there.
nice.
So oftentimes there's a tendency to be able to show ambition by demanding why you didn't get promoted or why you didn't get a particular rating. I think that your talent should be so so solidly out there. You know, maybe you should be, people should be talking about how talented you are. People who are talented don't remain hidden. And so pick the opportunities to demonstrate your talent in real time. And if you're being ignored or not being included, then you must have a conversation to ask for an opportunity to be able to come in. I'll share something interesting with you. When I used to be with British Gas, and we were running the normal talent processes to be able to identify people for promotion. There was a furor in some other parts of the world where young people asked why couldn't they, even if they didn't have the ratings or they didn't qualify to for whatever the criteria for promotion was, they wanted to go through the assessment center so that they could it was a potential assessment kind of a process. And so more people who were not eligible also asked, can we go through this? Right? Which meant the organization would have to incur the cost of allowing them to be able to do it. And very interesting, there were a fair amount of women who asked whether they could be part of the process. And interestingly, when we did put them through the process, a very significant 60% of the final promotions that got made included people who were from list B. They weren't on list A. They were from list B, which means they came out so well. They didn't have the ratings and the rest to qualify to come in. But when they did come in, 60% of the promotions happened from people who were not in the original list. And I think that is such an amazing commentary on our inability to be able to carry out fair assessments within organizations. And I think there were so many lessons learned from just this one, the fact that we let them get promoted because they did so well through the entire assessment process. So when an unbiased set of people actually assessed them, they had greater leadership qualities as compared to the ones who had the high ratings. And I think these are huge admissions to make as an organization, to say that our processes are not throwing up the right people who can actually lead the organization, and then to have the courage to act on that data. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So this is one. The other thing I want to talk to you about, especially the content, we're asking the question: what can you do to prepare as you are how do you build this momentum at mid level? And I think this is a very powerful story, and it's a real story. This is a large conglomerate that reached out to me, asking me to be able to design a leadership, women leadership learning intervention sort of for them. And as part of the discovery, they had some great statistics, right? They had almost 70 women across the conglomerate at mid management and above. So this was a fair number of people. Very sadly, the CXO -1, -2 didn't have any women, right? So these were more like GMs and senior GMs kind of within the organization. So I was delighted with the number. I told them, you'll have a success story on your hands with the kind of numbers you have of women across the organization at mid to senior level. And then as part of the discovery, I met with a lot of them, right? And, my question was a simple question, other than understanding what they did, was to simply say that in this year's business plan for your business, tell me what you do that adds up to this line in the business plan. So all you have to do is tell me what your role is and tell me how that links with some line in this year's business plan, right? And as part of that, my next question was going to be, how are you participating and contributing so that I could kind of help them shine in that year so that they stand out as candidates for next levels. Now, I couldn't get to that because most of them were unable to create a connection between what they do and any line in that year's business plan. And this is what I'm kind of, drawing your attention to. That a good way to know whether your role is relevant and you're making some meaningful contribution for impact, that is the only way you can get these roles, right? Can you meaningfully establish what you do and how you create impact in this year's business plan? If you're able to make this connection meaningfully, you're on the right path. Now, here were women sitting with titles like GM and senior GM, unable to, fumbling, mumbling, struggling to be able to make a connection between what I do and one line in my business plan for the year. Now, that itself kind of leads you to believe that some of these programs seem to move people up, women up, like diversity candidates who must be sort of nurtured and given basically positions to be able to basically this appears to me to be a check in the box kind of program that is enabling women to grow within the organization on designations but not really meaningfully engaging them for contribution. And to me, if you're not meaningfully engaging for contribution, it's too complex, too complicated a world and the business environment. You're not going to be able to make any meaningful impact, and as a result, not be considered easily for anything really big within the organization. So my first point and my second point and my third point to all the women at mid levels who want to be able to succeed is to be able to demand a meaningful role within the organization, lean in on that meaningful difficult role. No top management positions are on a platter. They're all difficult roles to be able to contribute on. So if you really want this badly, I think the first thing is to be able to advocate for opportunities to lean in, ask to become part of committees, ask to become part of programs, drive, become part of incubators and innovation projects within the organization so that you're able to shine for who you are and what you really bring. There are really no free positions that are available. Organizations cannot afford that. They've tried that in the past. They have continued with some of the past decisions, and increasingly they're not succeeding with being able to have people who are anything less than very talented in current times to be able to stay in these positions and contribute. But if you're struggling to make a connection between something important your organization is trying to achieve this year and how your role contributes to it, not contributes into somebody who in turn does something and then somebody else does something and what you're doing is lost. Would you be able to make a connection to say something that I do here significantly is contributing not as an input, not as an output, but as an outcome? So I'm going to leave that and bring Anuradha in again. And I think I want you to be able to think about your careers like that, because no top leadership roles are available on a platter. And so if we're not leaning in, and I know the question you might have is about opportunity, and I'm saying that ask for the opportunity if it's not coming your way, right? I just submitted that their assessment process, which allows you to become a contender for leadership positions, itself may be flawed, not just for you, for the men as well. And so, for us to be able to make sure that our talent does not remain hidden, because it's very difficult to hide it if you're very, very talented. So, with that, over to you, Anuradha, and I want you to be able to come in with the Vedika mid-level program that that you'll have curated, and I want more people on this call to be able to know about it. Whether you are planning to be a returning woman, whether you're already a returning woman, is there an opportunity for you to be able to start readying yourself for something really big? And there is a group of people available to be able to support you. So I'm going to just pass this over to Anuradha and the program Vedika is running.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sujaya. I just wanted to add to the all the things that are, wonderful tips for women to sort of continue their journeys and shine in their journeys. But there's one thing that I feel, and as an employer, I feel that as well, that there's this thing called being resourceful.
Hmm.
We all want on our team. So, when you say talent will shine, of course it will. But if you have to break that down, what does that mean?
Hmm.
And I feel like if I have to have a one line description, it's we all want on our teams that one person who gets it done, or that
Hmm.
one person who, if you give them, something to do, then you can sort of close your eyes and know that it'll be done, and
Hmm.
it'll be done with a certain quality, with a certain dependability. And I think that, that mix of what it means, and I think that curiosity and the desire to know stuff more than just your role is one part of it. Your
Yes.
credentials can take you to a second part, but I think very importantly, like, you do what you say you can do or you will do.
Yes. Yes.
um so I think there's a bunch of things there that lead to that. In terms of the mid-level program that we have set up, I think a lot of it comes from the things that you have spoken about. One thing that I feel quite strongly comes in the way is that we sometimes put competencies before the attitude or the mindset shift. And I'll give you a very quick example. Negotiation skills are constantly touted as one of
Hmm.
the missing links for women. And we are all put through negotiation classes.
Hmm.
But the truth is that I grew up for 30 years of my life thinking of
Yes.
negotiation as a bad word.
Hmm.
Nobody wants a wife who negotiates well. Nobody wants a daughter who negotiates well. Nobody wants a mom who negotiates well. So, till such time that we figure out that our integrated personalities, negotiation is a skill which we all need to know, and we need to be able to use it when required for the better outcome for ourselves, for our organizations, for our mission, or our goals. Because otherwise you can teach me all the negotiation, I can be a master, I can master the skill, but I don't use it because I don't think it's a great thing to do.
Hmm.
So I do feel that all of us have to be brutally honest with ourselves and say, do I don't not have the skill, or is something else coming in my way?
Hmm.
And I think organizations and ourselves, we have to know that we learn the skill or the competency along with a very mindful approach to using that competency.
Hmm.
So we recognize the fact that very often, by the time we get to mid level, we have competencies, but we haven't changed the way we think about them.
Hmm.
And the second thing that is actually at the core of our mid-level program is transition. So you started that the conversation with that. But there are all kinds of transitions. These are not many of these transitions for women could be in their personal lives, but they lead to many other implications in your profession. You may need to change cities, which means you have to build new connections. You move up the ladder. You're moving from talking about one to talking for many, and so you suddenly need to know how to be non-partisan. How do you represent the case or the interests or the views of 20 people as opposed to just yourself? How do you move from asking for yourself to asking on behalf of others? And then I'll tell you a bunch of other things that come with the leadership journey, which are very hard transitions to make. For example, if I have to do, you're my boss and I have to do a presentation for you, I have to read, write, make that presentation, give it to you. As you go up the ladder and you have 7 people or 10 people or 25 people reporting to you, you need to be familiar with your own work and you need to be familiar with their work, right? Just speed reading. It's a very simple skill. But how do you suddenly become that person who reads 10 times more than you did in your previous role? So these kinds of competencies, the acknowledgement of it, the learning of those competencies, and then all the stuff that comes with attitudes and mindsets to be able to use those competencies. And while we've curated this for mid level, our program was born of an understanding of what organizations globally were recognizing as missing skills in women as they went through their leadership journeys. So, negotiation, executive presence, assertiveness, expressing ambition, developing and expressing ambition, dealing with guilt, having difficult conversations, conflict, dealing with conflict, all the stuff. I mean, I know that you are 100% familiar with it, and I'm sure women on the call are familiar with it, but there is something very real called the double bind that women face, right? That what gets you marks at home doesn't get you marks at work, and vice versa. So, getting comfortable with the double bind and saying, you know what, these are skills that I need, and I will use them judiciously in all aspects of my life. But learning, listening, reading. So I think the transitions are always difficult. The pool of things that you need to be able to make those transitions effectively, as frictionlessly as you would like, and that is a combination of the inner and the outer. That's really how we've curated the program to help transitions from in mid career. And actually, it's transitions at each point. It's from the upper end of junior into middle, from middle to the upper end of middle, and from the upper end of middle into senior, because all of them are actually bring very specific transitions to a person's life, both in terms of behavior, in terms of knowledge, and in terms of competencies.
Great stuff. So, I wanted to just come in the context of, you talking about building your inner architecture and your ability to really sort of, manifest, like I was saying, what is most looked for, which is gravitas, your maturity to be able to handle sort of tough situations. It's not uncommon for ambitious women to sometimes get disliked within organizations. And I want to underline enough the need to be likable. It's an extremely important strength, and I'm inviting people, even as you're ambitious, as you want to be able to push through, that we don't end up becoming obnoxious or aggressive when we actually mean to be assertive. Assertive, like I said, is a very important leadership trait. And conversely, I find women swinging in the direction of becoming people pleasers, which is they'll never ever assert. But asserting for your point of view, having a point of view, manifesting that that your strength in terms of being able to convert what you have and what you know into actual performance. I think organizations are hungry for high performers in this difficult environment. So use this well in terms of being able to position yourself. And self advocacy is going to be a very, very significant part. If some of you want to know more about that, maybe during the Vedika program, or we're happy to be able to talk more specifically about what does it take to be able to advocate for yourself. Maybe we can plan something which is a longer conversation around it. But at this point, it simply means that you identify opportunities in line with your strengths. You see, your ambition drives you to want to be part of some of these movements inside the organization. And even if you have not been invited to join, you go and reach out to be able to present yourself and your candidature for that movement, or that, that work stream, or that particular task force, so that you're able to come in and contribute and showcase yourself. Once you're part of these, if you're somebody who's really talented and contributing, they'd be so glad that you came in and joined. So don't wait to be asked, right? You can wait to be asked when you're looking at a marriage proposal. All right. You don't wait to be asked when you want an opportunity at work. Just go out there and get it, right? And at most times, I found that when people do come forth and ask, right? It's very charming, when they come in to be able to ask, saying, "Can I have an opportunity?" It's charming that they basically believe that they should be included. It's great that they have the confidence to come and ask for this, and a lot of them justify why it is that they believe that they should be part of it. You don't go with a complaining attitude about not having been included. You go there with the enthusiasm which they want, that infectious enthusiasm into their movements or into their teams, so that you're able to participate and contribute. When you do get that seat on the table, use it well. Use it to be able to truly let your inner architecture, your inner strengths, your inner talent to shine through. And when you do
Yeah.
that, I don't think, look, there is no gender for talent. Okay, there is no gender for talent. There's no gender for contribution. There's no gender for leadership. Yeah, it's basically your abilities that people really want and need badly at this time. Yeah. Now, let me just give you like a flip side of what I find, and these are just for reflection. I'm sure all of you on the call here who are mid-career women are very excited and want to know, what perspectives the speakers have in this particular your LinkedIn Live event, which you can actually kind of go back and apply. So I won't be able to talk about what I see women do sometimes, which is what should you watch out for, right? So one is that there is kind of this opportunity that you acknowledge at the early stages when you do get the returning opportunity. And then at some point in time, there are these are difficult times, and Anuradha already called out, you're divided between your care responsibilities across people. And so it's easy for your enthusiasm to wane. And I'm inviting that enthusiasm to be able to increase as you spend time, so that you're spotting opportunities to be able to strategically build and make choices for your own career. It's very important to be able to seek support and mentorship from people within the organization. If you typically mentors seek out people who are talented. So if your talent shines through, you will easily find mentors. But in the event that you do believe you want time with various people, you want, a half an hour with someone, or you want a 1 hour with someone, do not hesitate and don't be shy to be able to ask for it. Right? Most people are generous to be able to give that to you. Very important for you to know what's going on and what kind of opportunities can actually build your career. If you're kind of blinkered and you only want to look at whatever is immediately under your nose, and you want to do that and run away, it's very difficult to then find out what opportunities you might really have inside the organization. Then self-advocate, for those opportunities. Extremely important to remain on a steep learning curve. Meanwhile, there's nothing ever that replaces expertise. If you're 5 questions deep on any area of work, you're very much wanted and needed within the organization. I also find this area of investment in self and investment in learning on the job, taking on the tough jobs. I have in my roles taken on the graduate engineer role in my induction, so that I'm able to learn and understand the Gemba, which is where the work actually gets done. Not hesitated to be able to travel across the red belt as required. Proactively went forth to be able to take, there was driving change, of course, for organizations, but made it a point to meet people no matter how remote the location, right? All of this, creating connections, sacrifice, waking up early, getting those flights, getting those trains, making sure you go out there and you kind of, and understand the Gemba. I think if you want one hack on what will get people to notice you and your contribution, is if you're someone who understands the actual place of work. You know what I mean? Everyone's busy wanting to become a leader and go, move further and further away from the actual place of work. And I'm drawing you to the actual place of work. The opportunities belong to people who actually understand the Gemba. The Japanese call it the Gemba. Understand the Gemba and invest in the Gemba. And you must seek support. And I'm saying, before we ask for support inside organizations, ask for support from your family members. Ask people to support you in the context of the transitions that you're making. Or if there are children at home, you need a very supportive spouse who lets you go to do this, meaning in the sense who enables you to do this, who enables circumstances for you to be able to go and ask for it. I mean, just as much as you're asking for help from inside the organization, you must have a safe space at home where there are people who are supporting what it is that you're attempting to do. If you're involved, you're connected, you're contributing, you're participating, it's very, very difficult to not consider you a leader, yeah, or a potential leader. So lean in. Lean in for the difficult work. All difficult work is a character building journey, right? And all the jobs at the top are extremely difficult to do, particularly in the current environment. There's nothing to say that there's anything stopping you from being able to do it, but lean in for the tough jobs. That's like right at the center of being able to really prepare yourself to do what you want to. And the learning journey is very important. I want to go back to that for a bit. Are you reading? Are you watching TED Talks? Are you basically, there is a plethora of options available, but be choosy about what it is that you need the most to be able to succeed. It's extremely important. What are you doing in your personal time to build yourself? So, so, so important. So, over again for Anuradha to be able to respond to what you believe are the last ideas that you want to be able to leave them with, and especially on investment in self.
Yeah, no, I think I'll make 2 points because I think you've covered most of it. I think that I want to go back to the likability because I think we have a natural advantage because the years of conditioning we've had. And I want to mention a TED talk that I heard many years ago about a school principal. There was a teacher crossing, and she said that, how was your day? And she said, actually, I had a scrap in the class, but you know what? I'm not in a popularity contest. And this school principal, then her whole talk is about the fact that actually no one learns from people they don't like. So, frankly, likability is a huge advantage.
It is.
We train to be there. And I think it's about using that judiciously to actually do what we need to do, embrace leadership positions, embrace growth. We don't have to discard that because that was the older norm of leadership, and people have made it a virtue to say, I'm not in a popularity
Hmm.
contest. So I do think that there is something to be said about doing the right thing, but doing it in a likable manner. I always feel, even for myself, and I give this advice to everyone who chooses to listen to me, that there is every single day we have an opportunity to do the right thing in a better way. It can be in a manner that is better received by somebody. So I do think that investment in our own behavior, in our own conduct, in our own leadership style, where we don't compromise on what we need to do, we just do it in a easier to absorb manner for people. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second piece is a very mundane piece of advice, but as a woman who has worked relentlessly since I was very young, please over invest in admin. Sujaya has made a lot of comments, and I mean, so have I, about investing in relationships, your family. Conversations have to be taken to your family. You have to have that support from your organization, from your peers, friends, everywhere. So, yes, please don't hesitate to ask for help. But as a working woman, please over invest in admin, because the mind space that the home not functioning well takes away from you it cannot be overstated.
Hmm.
investing in good domestic support where you don't have to then get worried about things that we naturally take responsibility for, till such time that all of us together can create a world where domestic responsibilities are more equally shared, care responsibilities are more equally shared. Till we carry that responsibility to a greater extent, please overinvest in your admin infrastructure in your homes. It'll give you disproportionate results and advantages in the workspace.
Couldn't agree more. I think a lot of people don't manage their transitions well because they have not fixed this. So it's a very important piece of advice, and thank you for bringing that in. So I think with that, that was surge effect. We want you to be able to build momentum and keep this dialogue going. I want to thank Anuradha for joining me in this conversation today, and watch this space for more, everyone. Uh, I want Gaurav to be able to share the slide on the next talking points that you can look forward to. I want you to take note of the date. It's the 24th of June. And this time around, we literally have an absolutely, stupendously, informed and very learned person called Dr. Shailesh Kumar, who basically is going to come in, and we'll have a conversation around how do you build an AI first organization, leading the shift from digital adoption to intelligent transformation. We want to talk about elements of people, culture, and change in the context of building an AI first organization. We couldn't get a better person to be able to join into this conversation. He teaches at many leading institutions, including ISB, works very closely with Capstone and Capstone clients, and I'm very delighted to be able to present Dr. Shailesh Kumar to all of you. So watch the space for more. 4 to 5 on the 24th of June, building AI first organizations, moving from digital adoption to intelligent transformation. We're going to try and talk more about this very current and very sort of relevant theme, and looking forward to all of you joining us in for this. But this space, which is on the surge effect, this is a conversation we will keep having and coming back and looping in with more. And Anuradha Das Mathur, thank you so much for joining in with me on this. This was an absolute delight and pleasure. People do business with people they like, is what Archana is saying. I learned in 1996 while going through learning management skills. So well said, Archana. That's absolutely true. And you don't have to swing on the side of becoming a people pleaser, but being someone who's reasonable, congenial, and likable and mature is very attractive for leadership positions. So I think with that, thank you everyone one more time
Thank
for
you.
spending
Thank you
your
very much. Yeah.
afternoon with us. Take care, everybody. Take care, Anuradha. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Thanks very much. Thanks for
See
having me.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.